Are you in social situations feeling nervous and anxious and tense? You're thinking about what to say and you're all in your head. Are you before social situations worried and anxious about what's coming up? And after a crappy social situations, do you like beat yourself up? Well, then you gotta check out this interview. I'm interviewing Debbie, who in 7, 8 months went from extreme social anxiety, very high levels, to the point where she avoided everything, to not experiencing anxiety in many social situations and actually feeling socially at ease, and also having particular tools to be able to calm down that anxiety. I think you're going to find this a very inspiring and insightful interview. This is Sebastiaan, well, that's me, from socialanxietysolutions.com. I'm a former social anxiety disorder sufferer, social confidence coach, and I run the Social Confidence Club. The interview that you're going to hear is going to start off by asking a little bit about what Deb's experience was before, deep in her suffering, what she experienced during her transformation, and what were the specific things that helped her break through, and whether it was a progressive reduction or whether there was a breakthrough. Hint, there was a breakthrough. You'll find out about it later on in the interview. She first sets the stage so that you understand why that breakthrough occurred. So without further ado, you're gonna love this. Check it out. What I'd like to know first is how was your social anxiety before you joined the club? Kind of like, how did you feel in social situations? Did you avoid them? What were the thoughts you were having? That kind of stuff.
So my social anxiety was very high. I was definitely avoiding any social opportunity that I had. Like the thought of going was so hard. The idea of going was not a possibility to me. So I would just turn down any opportunity without even considering going. And then slowly I started to take more risks and say, okay, I'm going to go. And I would try doing some tapping, some of the videos, some of the tap alongs that are on the site before an event. And that made such a huge difference for me right away because I would feel so anxious leading up to going out to the event, but that helped me to calm down before going there. And then for a while, just going to events, I would remain really anxious the whole time. I would be really stiff and just feeling like forcing myself to stay there and try to not look like I was having this experience of anxiety. But I think it was probably pretty obvious to other people. And like I would force myself to keep talking and responding to people and trying to act and pretend like everything was fine, but really never entering that state of ease until I would have about 3 drinks of alcohol.
Right.
And then finally I could relax a little bit, but then it was almost like over and time to go. So then I would just feel bad about not having connected with anyone. Like I tried to go and I spent time with people and I still wasn't able to connect. But then I don't really know what it was. I tried to think about what it could have been specifically that led to me being able to calm down during the event. But I said, I really can't pinpoint exactly what it was. But there were times that I would feel the panic and anxiety coming on. And then I would go to the bathroom or somewhere private and I would be able to do a little bit of tapping to calm myself down. And then I was able to go back and feel like I could keep going in a little more relaxed state. So I think it probably progressed to that. And then at some point, it was really in November that suddenly I felt like this whole, I called it like a veil of fear that lifted. And that was always for a long time. I've felt like the word fear is like who I am.
Mm.
And I would journal about that. Like I just, if I could label myself, it would be afraid. Like the word afraid and fear was just me.
Mm.
And so it felt like that lifted for the first time. And I was able to be out in social events and feel like I was actually there instead of having this like blanket of fear around me.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it was like, holy cow, it's been nice, but it was also like I've kind of been not living my life for a long time. So it was also really upsetting in that way, just
Mm,
to realize how much I'd been missing out on and thinking about all these other people that are living like this and have lived their lives like this, and just all the connections that I could have been making and I haven't been able to because of that.
right, right. Thanks for sharing. I'd say that particular thing, that feeling of like, oh my God, look at all of the things that I've missed out on and so on. That actually is a tappable topic. And
Mhm.
that disappointment and sadness can be processed as well so that you can fully actually enjoy the present moment. So it's just another layer, if you will. It's quite common, in fact. Yeah. So that's great. Very good. What I want to draw out a little bit still for people is how it was before. So, how did you feel and what was most scary for you and like the experience? What would happen, say, I don't know, a year ago when you would go into a social situation?
So I was afraid of what everyone else would think of me just constantly. Even if it was just walking into a room of people, I would immediately feel like everyone was going to be looking at me and making judgments of me. And as soon as I spoke, they would be judging me on what I was saying, the sound of my voice, the facial expressions I was making, what I was wearing, things I was saying. And I was so afraid of what people thought of me. And I think what I ultimately started realizing in the club, one of the big areas for me was thinking about what I think of myself and how I look at myself, and all the things like making lists of, I don't like this about myself, making lists of all those things and realizing that I really had a negative view of myself. And so that was a big realization for me. I think I would immediately start thinking all these people, anyone would immediately start thinking the things about me that I was thinking about myself, and that they wouldn't like me, and that it would kind of be revealed that I was this person that no one was going to like. And I was never going to be able to connect with anyone or make any friends, and I would be alone.
Right. Right. I think what you describe is a very common experience when people are experiencing social anxiety. And so then it's like you're in this situation, it feels like everyone is watching you and judging you, and it's not favorable. And you're having this dread and all this worry about what's going to happen. And then you're not going to have a very pleasant social situation, to say the least. And did any bad things happen socially, or like did it lead to any uncomfortable social situations, or what would happen?
Yes. I mean, nothing as terrible, I think, as I imagined in my mind. But yeah, I do feel like there were people that kind of would make a judgment of me. And I think it was kind of weird because I worry that they wouldn't see my anxiety. I didn't want them to see my anxiety, but then I would worry that they would get the wrong impression of me because what I was showing them was not who I really was. It was me being anxious. I was worried that they would think, oh, she's weird, she's stupid, just all these negative things. So I think, I mean, I don't really know for sure, but I think it seems like there were some people that maybe decided they don't really have an interest in getting to know me further. So, like some of those relationships with neighbors, for example, we haven't really gotten to know one another much better. Like, I can't know for sure what they're thinking of me. And it
Right.
could just that we haven't had the opportunity, but
Mm.
I,
But no very, sorry to interrupt, but no very obvious things like, oh, she said to my face, get out of here, and like these horrible things. So it sounds like it's a very internal experience, right?
yes.
Yeah. Right. And then go ahead.
Yeah, I guess with family, there were definitely some times that it was less internal and there were more arguments and things, but that's like a different topic, I feel like.
Right, right, right. Gotcha. And then after these social experiences, how did you feel? And how did you talk to yourself? Or were you fine afterwards?
No, I was not fine. I would think about it for days and replay the conversations that I had over in my head. I would lose sleep over it. I wouldn't be able to sleep. I felt even more anxious about going into the next social situation where I might run into one of these same people again that I felt like things didn't go great with. I felt sort of ashamed of myself and my behavior. So it kind of led to being even more scared to go and put myself out there again.
It's a negative loop. And then before a social situation, one that you couldn't avoid, how would you feel?
One that I couldn't avoid, you mean?
Because you said you avoided as much as you could, but not everything is avoidable, right? So sometimes there's a birthday or there's like, I don't know, a wedding or something that you can't get out of. How would that then go? How would you feel ahead of it?
So, it's funny. I don't like to be alone. I like to be around other people. So I think it depends on who it was with. So if it was with people that I weren't normally around, if it was a new group of people, I wouldn't feel too worried. It was usually people that I've had these other experiences with being anxious around.
Why was that a concern?
I guess I worried that they had made their opinion of me and I wasn't going to be able to change it. It was just kind of embarrassing and pointless to go back and be around those same people.
Right, right. Got it. Okay. What was most painful about all of that? Having the veil of fear and, feeling so judged socially, beating yourself up and, worrying about seeing those people again. What was most painful, most difficult?
Definitely the fear of being alone, that I would be alone always and never have friends and never have people that I could connect with and develop relationships with.
Got it. Got it. And so, were there any things that you had tried prior to joining the club?
Yeah, so I saw two different therapists. One when I was about 35 for about a year. He was more of a life coach.
Okay.
And then another one when I was 39, I think. I'm 42 now. And it was just, I guess, what's called cognitive behavioral therapy. So we would just sit and talk, and there wasn't any tapping or anything with the physical body. And that helped me to think about my past and understand things about my upbringing that I needed to understand and think about. But it didn't really help with my anxiety. It didn't seem to lessen things. It just made me kind of understand why it was there, but it wasn't helping me to move forward. And exercise has always helped me with anxiety, but with my kids, I don't have a lot of time for myself. So I can't always just go for a run or go to the gym. So I tried some meditation apps. There was one called Calm that I tried, and there was another one called 10% Happier. And those were like paid prescriptions that I signed up for. And I tried to build in a routine of meditating, and that helped me, I think, somewhat, but it really wasn't applying it to specific things. And it definitely wasn't targeted to social anxiety. So, yeah, that's about all I tried. And then I was listening to some podcasts, and I was really trying to figure out a way that I could make some new friends. And I found on Google Podcast one about, I forget what it was called, but it was about how to make friends, essentially. And for some reason, your podcast came up as another similar thing. I think it was one of your podcasts about friends. And so I watched that, and that was like, this is more specific to what I needed help with than anything I had found before. So then I started listening to more of those podcasts of the social anxiety solutions. And I was still seeing a therapist, and I brought it up to her. And then she shared with me a little bit of what she knew about EFT. And it was kind of interesting because she said that she worked with a group of therapists, and they had just hired someone who had training in that. And she wanted to keep hearing about how it was helping me. So those are the things I tried. And then I found out about the club. I signed up for the emails, and I started hearing about the club. And I thought at first, this is going to be cost prohibitive for me. But then I realized it wasn't like a whole sum of money up front. And in order to afford it, I stopped seeing my therapist and joined the club. And just being a part of the group, knowing that people had the same things, same experiences that I had, was the life changing thing for me. I mean, it started with you and then just grew out of that, then joining the club and finding out that there were all these other people. And everything that I did with the club, it just kind of blew my mind at the beginning because I could relate with every single thing that people would bring up. And that had never happened before. I always felt like no one could understand what was wrong with me and what I was going through.
It's a very interesting experience because typically this was my experience when I had social anxiety. I'm like, I didn't talk about it with anyone. This was my secret. Some people reveal it to other people. I never did that. By the way, probably more helpful to reveal it to some people so you get support, but I never did that. And so to then have a screen and a room full of people in a forum and a WhatsApp where everyone talks about the problem that you have, it's so interesting, right? That's one word. But there's something very soothing and empowering within it, and I know it builds self-acceptance because you get to feel like, hey, it's not just me.
Yeah, same. I hadn't talked to anyone. I mean, I told people that I have anxiety and I've dealt with anxiety, but we didn't talk about what that's like or what it feels like or how it affects my life. And specifically having social anxiety, I didn't even realize that was a thing. I just thought, oh, maybe I have generalized anxiety disorder. I knew something was wrong with me and I didn't know what. So, yeah, having one person understand and say and name the things that I was experiencing was really big. And then having a whole group of people from all over the world, not just from my country or my neighborhood, but from all over the world having these same experiences, it really made me feel like I wasn't a weirdo anymore. I was having the same issues that all these other people were having, and I could finally be understood and try to understand myself and understand that I wasn't alone. On top of that, just having people to relate with on this, it was also listening to your videos and doing your lessons and exercise and realizing that people were overcoming this. That was really intriguing and exciting. And it gave me hope for the first time that I never had before. I mean, it was like this beacon of hope that I had been shown. And it was really exciting. And I'm very excited to keep going with it and very thankful because it really was like, it was dramatic, but it felt like I was like trying to find a lifeline. Like I didn't feel like I could go on like this. Like, what was I going to do? And then suddenly it was found. So,
Amazing.
yeah.
Great to hear. Okay, and so what we do in the club, we have Tune Your Motivation Tuesday, where it's like a tap along, usually something to boost your motivation. And then on Thursday, it's specific psychology lessons with a tapping exercise. And then on Sunday, we do live coaching, and it can be group coaching, one-on-one coaching, or particular exercises to challenge yourself. And it's a variety of format. And then we have a group WhatsApp and a forum. So as you've been experiencing this since March, and we're now in December, what are your results now? How's it now compared to how it was before?
So I'm not anxiety free and I'm not socially at ease all the time, but I am socially at ease a lot of the time. And I feel like I can calm my anxiety down just so I can be myself with other people and connect with them. And it's happening, and I'm able to make some friends and connections. And I'm just hopeful that those relationships will continue to strengthen and grow. So I guess I still have the anticipatory anxiety, but it's for a much less amount of time where I might worry about, what's this going to be like? What are some things I can talk about? What are this people and I going to have to talk about? But I don't obsess over it. And I don't always do that anymore. Sometimes I don't even do that, but it might just be for a few minutes. Whereas before, at the beginning, it was for days ahead, sometimes even weeks, that I would worry about the event that was coming up. And then being there in the social situation, like I said, I would kind of stay in this state of anxiety, but forcing myself to be there. And it would last the whole time, hours that I was at the event. Whereas now I feel like I go into it and within a few minutes, I can usually calm down the anxiety. And I feel weird saying that because it's more like I let it happen and I'm not trying to push it away. So I'm
Mm.
letting it happen and then it resolves instead of I'm trying to push it away and hold it down and hide it and then it never goes away. So, and then after the event, instead of, whereas before I would for days think about all the things that went wrong and all the weird conversations and all the weird things I said and maybe did, and like kind of thinking like it was a negative experience on the whole because the people I talked with probably have this weird opinion of me now. And of course they would, so would I. I was that person. And I would just feel like it was a bad thing to have gone. And I would lose sleep and continue to think about all the things that happened. But now I end up feeling like, wow, I'm really glad I did that. And it led to some positive things. And yeah, it's not like the end of the world anymore. It's kind
Mm.
of like, oh, maybe this, will lead to something else. And maybe I'll reach out to that person and we'll get together another time. Maybe I'll do some other things. Maybe I'll host an event. Like, a big difference.
Right. Very cool. I'm very happy for you. That's very good. What I also appreciate, which I said before the interview as well, is that you're doing the interview here and you're not fully and completely over the problem yet. And the fact that you're doing that also speaks of a particular self-acceptance and an acceptance with the problem, which is for a large part also what we focus on in the club, right? One of the three keys is acceptance. And I think that is also part of what allows you to, in the moments that anxiety is there for you, you allow it to be there and that can calm it down. And it's not just the idea of acceptance, it's all the tapping we've done on acceptance to instill it into your subconscious so that it comes up and your subconscious is like, yeah, okay, well, it is what it is, it's going to pass and I'm all right. So that's great. And I love that you've made a bunch of friends out of it already as well, right? So it's not just I feel better, but I've taken action and my life circumstances are improving because of it. Very good. It's great. Good for you.
I mean, I say that I still have a lot to work because I feel like those relationships that I've made, I'm still fearful, or I guess I don't trust that people aren't going to change their mind about me and kind of turn on me. And I have
Mm.
to work on there, I think, because yeah, I still fear that, I can't fully trust this person, but at least I'm trying and I'm,
Right,
putting
right.
myself in that
Yeah,
position.
the difference is that you're out there, you're putting yourself in that position, like you say, and you're not riddled by anxiety. Because when you're super anxious, thinking that nobody likes you, and you're worried about people seeing you as anxious, you're too in your head in order to be able to even make a connection with people and even start friendships in the first place. So where you're at now is kind of like stage 3 or stage 4 of the 5 stages, and there's more work to do, but like you said, things are moving, and that which you're describing is simply another step. This is a very much a tapping target which can liberate you even further. I mean, you're 7 months in or something, and how long did you suffer from social anxiety?
Pretty much my whole life. I mean, I think it started showing up the most when I went to college.
Mm.
But I think when I was young and was becoming in adolescence, and then I unfortunately self medicated with drugs and alcohol
Mm.
through
Me
that
too.
period until I was in college. And then it wasn't until I met my husband who didn't drink or do drugs or had never smoked a cigarette in his life or anything that sort of pulled me out of all that. Then I started taking medication for the anxiety with all the side effects and everything. And I always wanted to try to work on it in other ways, but I didn't feel like I ever had the time or the resources to figure that out until now.
And it's starting to pay off, so that's good stuff, right? Yeah, good. What was the first thing that you noticed that told you that things are changing for the better?
I think just having the resources of the tapping videos in the Kajabi, having those resources felt like, okay, I've got something. I've got something that I can use to give me confidence to go into that social situation. So instead of saying no, I said, okay, with these tools, I'm going to say yes and try.
Amazing. What I love about doing these interviews as well, I get to figure things out, yeah, as to what's so helpful for people. And it's different things for different people.
Yeah.
Cool.
And just so I felt like for the first time, because with therapy, the therapist with regular cognitive behavioral therapy, I mean, they would tell me things like, oh, you shouldn't think that way. You should think this way and remember this and tell yourself this. And it was all things that I was telling myself in my head, but it wasn't helping me. I could tell myself, relax, no one's going to think this, think positively, but it wasn't really doing anything. And when I added the actual physical act of tapping, it did make a difference. And that's what I find so amazing is that, like, how come everyone's not doing this? Because I feel like you can't separate the brain from the body. And so trying to just tell yourself something without doing some sort of physical act with your body, for me, it just makes so much sense.
Right. To mind
Yeah.
body tapping, right? That actually addresses the emotions because it's not just the thoughts that are the problem, it's emotionalized thoughts that are the problem. And you can try to be positive all you want, but it doesn't really do that much. It helps when you're in the comfort of your own home, but not that much even. But when you use the tapping, actually the emotions begin to change. It's amazing, no?
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't know about any kind of energy therapy or EFT. I didn't know about any of it. The only thing I would somewhat be close to what we're talking about is yoga, which I had done a little bit, but even then I feel like it's more then you're taking away the thoughts, a lot of the thoughts with it and just focusing on the breath and the body. So it just makes so much sense. What I think about a lot now is trying to get it out there because I'm so affected by it and it's made such a difference for me. I'm trying to share it with others and hoping that they can benefit too. But I feel like it really should be more widespread because so many people see therapists and get cognitive behavioral therapy in around me, at least where I'm from, and so many people work out and do yoga, but most people I think around where I am don't know about tapping or energy therapy, and I think that should change. I mean, I teach my kids and I've talked about it with a couple of other friends, and I just think it's could really make a big difference.
Right. Right. I've taught my daughter, I've taught my cousin, my whole family, my friends, and yeah, there's pretty much very little people in my life that don't know about it at this point. And what was your first experience with the tapping itself, where it worked for the first time? Can you remember?
I think I don't remember exactly when, but it was definitely with using one of these anticipatory anxiety videos before a social event. And I really noticed that before even going to the event, I was feeling like a 10 anxiety about it. And I was able to go down to probably like a 1 or a 2 before. And so from then on, I just started using those videos before any social event. I would work in 5-10 minutes to do that tap along before going.
Yeah, very powerful. And it's like when you have something that works, right? You're like, wow, I'm not hopeless anymore. There's something I can do. That was what it was for me. Like, okay, when it worked for me the first time, I'm like, holy shit, I actually have something now that I can go to.
Absolutely.
And so, did the changes for you happen gradually, or was it like an all at once thing? You talked about the veil of fear lifting.
Yeah, it was definitely gradual. I feel like I'm not very good at putting my thoughts into words. But through the videos and the things I would read from the Tuesdays and Thursdays and the Zooms, just having those thoughts kind of consistently, thinking about all the things that we were learning and trying to change my thinking about things. It just little things here and there would be like, wow, okay, I'm recognizing now that this is the way I normally think about it, but here's another way I could be thinking about it. And it's how I'm perceiving things more than what's actually happening. So that was definitely a gradual process over months. But then I think it allowed me to eventually build my own confidence about going into social situations, that I was able to have negative social experiences, more positive ones, and then they would build on each other and give me more confidence about it. And so I think by the time November came around, I was doing a lot more socially, and I don't know exactly what it was that lifted that veil, but suddenly it did feel like a sudden kind of thing, that like all of a sudden I was noticing I would be out in public around lots of people, some that I knew, some that I didn't know, but also some that I knew, which would usually really trigger my anxiety, and it wasn't being triggered anymore. And I just felt like I was present in that moment with them and was able to be at ease and enjoy the moment more.
Amazing. It is a lot of little steps that all add up to a gradual decreasing of the social anxiety. So it decreases in intensity and frequency and duration. And not only that, we're also working on the deeper underlying stuff, like what you were talking about. Well, this was a self-esteem month, where one of the exercises was writing all the things you don't like about yourself and then tapping on that. That begins to chip away at the deeper underlying causes that are responsible for the social anxiety. And then, you boost your self-esteem, you start to accept yourself more. And that then eventually leads to less and less fear, because you become more and more okay with you. And you're the evidence of that. And there's more to go. It's still going to get better. But yeah, it's great already. So very good, very good. So what I wanted to ask was, there's different levels of engagement for people. So some people don't do much of the exercises, but they show up consistently every Sunday. It's their thing they do every week. They hold themselves accountable and they always show up live, or they always watch the replay. Some people do everything. Some people don't really do much of the live or the replays, but they more focus on the exercises. So how about you?
So that has varied with me also. I'm not always consistent, but it really, I think, has to do with the circumstances of my family, my kids. For instance, for a while, my daughter was taking dance lessons, and I was able to bring just her. My other kids were at school, and I was able to bring just her to dance class and then sit in the car and consistently do the same things every day to stay current with the social confidence club activity. But then that stopped, and then I was finding it hard to find that consistent time. And then my son started soccer practice, and I was able to go to take him to soccer and sit in the car and consistently do that from week to week. So it kind of goes in and out for me based on when I have that time for myself. And then now, if I really look forward to being on the live Zooms on Sundays, but unfortunately, because of family commitments, I'm not always able to be there. So what I do is I try, if I'm at the gym and I try to, on the elliptical machine, I'll listen to the replay, and I don't really tap along, but I at least am getting caught up. And if there's something I feel like, oh, I really should tap on this from the Zoom, then I'll save that and I'll do it in the car after. When I have time, I'll do it, watch it again and tap along. And then around the holidays, like if we're traveling, there's been times where I missed, like I wasn't doing much for the whole month, and then I would feel really behind. But through these exercises, I've been letting go of some of my perfectionist habits. I felt totally overwhelmed, and like I had to start with the ones I missed a month ago and do everything in order, until I started doing the current ones. Or anytime I missed anything, I would feel like I had to do them in order. I couldn't do them out of order. And I let go of that ultimately. And now if I miss stuff, I can just do it. Some things I haven't done, and I do save them in my email in a folder, and I try to go back to them if I have time, but I just try to stay current with what's happening. happening. Unfortunately, I haven't done it consistently, and I would love to do that this year, try to really stay more consistent with it and do more on my own as well, because I know there's so much more I could be doing other than just the specific. Like there's always suggested, in the videos and things, you'll say, well, if something comes up on that, you might want to do some more tapping on it. And I almost always feel like, oh, I could do some more tapping on that, but then I don't find the time to do it. So yeah, I'm just really looking forward to having more time to be able to devote to it. And I can only imagine like where things will lead if I devote more time. So I would say I'm probably doing the bare minimum, but it's still making a huge difference for me.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. And it's going to get better because we're now implementing TAT as well and other kinds of exercises. So, yeah. And you've built a good foundation already. So, really cool. Really cool. Anyway, let me see. Okay. So, what's most helpful about the webinars for you?
Well, whenever anyone else has the courage to go live and share and do some tapping with you within the group while everyone else is there too watching, I always find that pretty amazing because for me, like sharing something personal is a big deal if it's with one person, but to be doing it within a group and having all these other people hearing all these really personal, vulnerable things that you're sharing, that takes a lot of courage for me. And I know for other people. So just seeing other people have the nerve to do that is inspiring. And I can always relate with everything they're talking about and feeling and saying. I mean, like spot on. And so, whatever benefits they're getting, I think I'm getting some of those benefits too, just by listening in. And I often wish I could respond to them in some way and just say, wow, like that was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And that really had it, like, so they know how much of an impact what they shared had on me, just the shared benefits, I think, what everyone's dealing with, because it's also so helpful for what I'm going through. And also the times that I've shared, I feel like being on camera like this is not very comfortable for me. I just didn't ever do a whole lot of it in my life. So Zoom calling is not like real comfortable for me. But the times that I did do it, it was incredibly helpful. I mean, I don't know if I'm being clear, but when I myself am tapping with you along with the group and I speak on camera, some of those sessions have been really powerful. And the things that we talked about and uncovered through the tapping were really big and powerful and made big changes for me. And then watching the replays of myself having done that gave me some more like, okay, like good job. You worked up the courage to do that. And I looked at other people's faces and no one was like, oh my gosh, like thinking she's totally weird and said something stupid. So that was sort of encouraging too.
Mm, nice. It's good feedback, by the way, what you said about I would like to say something to the people who have volunteered. We need to set something up where we can do that, you know? We'll have to think of something.
I mean, it's wouldn't want to like offend anyone or like open up the possibility to that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just like being able to say that I can really relate to what they talked about.
Yeah. It does happen sometimes in the comments, but we
Yeah.
don't leave time for it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, okay, because we tried to keep it short for the replay, otherwise people are like, oh, it went too long. But yeah, we'll think of something. Yeah, that's good. So people that are watching this, they often have the concern, okay, well, is this going to be really painful? Is it going to be really awkward? Is it going to be really difficult? What would you say to that?
Meaning the live Zooms or just being a part of the club?
All of it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely not painful at all. It's incredibly comforting and it's a safe place. And I think if you don't have a safe place in your life, like a therapist or some sort of other tool to talk about how you're feeling and what you're going through with social anxiety, it's a place where it's safe and it's like your people. I feel like it's my people. Like, even though I don't necessarily know all of you on a personal level and we don't like do things together in outside of the club, outside of virtual, I feel like I'm connected with all of you in that way. And it feels like I'm not alone. Like I have these people out in the world in all various places all over the world. And I get emotional because I really feel like a strong connection with them. And I don't know if they feel that way about me, but I feel that way about them. And I
Right.
feel like if I had the opportunity to see these people in real life, I would just want to give them a hug because I really feel so grateful that they are willing to share their vulnerabilities with me and that they're listening to what I've dealt with as well, and they seem to care. It's a really caring environment. And again, like it's not like I know these people on a real personal level on like what they do for work or for fun, or but to know somebody else's like deepest worries and fears, I think is a pretty powerful thing. And I feel like we've gotten to know those things about one another for the most part, or at least those that have shared on Zoom calls more and have interacted through the WhatsApp, it's grown to that. And I know there are a lot of other people that are part of the club but are not doing that much FaceTime or interacting that much. And I feel sad. Like I wish I could reach out to them too because it's just a safe place. No one's going to hurt anybody in this group. And we all just want to build each other up.
Right.
In the WhatsApp group, if somebody's had, a bad day or something happened in their life, they'll put that out there. And immediately a bunch of people swarm in with like positive, encouraging words. And it's like this whole support group. That is what it feels like, a support group of people that really care about one another and want to help each other and want to just be those encouraging thoughts. One thing I want to bring up is one of the live Zooms that I was on, you made a comment about how sometimes you grow up with people that are in your corner, but they're not really rooting you on, they're pushing you down. And you need people that are in your corner that are encouraging you and cheering you on. And I think for me personally, I had that in my older brother, but not in the rest of my family. And my older brother died in a motorcycle accident when he was young. So that relationship sort of went away. And I feel like I've been afraid of connecting with others for fear that there are going to be more people in my corner pushing me down. And I don't need that. I need people trying to cheer me on. And this group is doing that. I feel like this group are people in your corner cheering you on.
Beautiful. Well said. Of course, our team is trying to set things up in the best way we possibly can. And, in the beginning, because this is the fifth year that we're running it, in the beginning, came up with some form guidelines and stuff like that. And it's not really that necessary at all. I mean, I've never had to kick anyone out or even reprimand anyone because we're all in the same boat. Everyone knows what we're talking about, what we're going through. It's tremendous suffering. And that there's then an opportunity to get out of that suffering. Well, then we're now a mastermind and we are going at this together. And I think that's what you're talking about. It's like, I feel connected with everyone in the group. We're all aiming at that target, and that's where we're going. And, we try to get all of us with us to go in that direction. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I'm happy to be part of it. I'm leading it, but I'm
Yeah.
happy to be part of it. It's a cool
Yeah.
thing.
Also knowing that some of the members in the group who share, they have already gone through the program. Like this wasn't their first year. That was really comforting too, because you realize, well, I might not be done, at the end of this year. If I don't feel like I'm making progress, it's not like another thing that's failed. It's like, okay, it just takes some more time. You don't get kicked out after the end of the year.
Right. What did you specifically like most about the club?
I like that there's like a routine so on Tuesday there's going to be like a tune up motivational thing, and then Thursday there's going to be more of an in-depth thing that we can do the easy action step or the harder action step, the power action step. Yeah, I like things to know what's coming. And so I like that. I know that that's consistently going to happen. There's consistently going to be that Tuesday email and that Thursday email, and that the Zooms, of course, too, are the biggest thing that I look forward to. And I like that there are occasionally guest speakers too. I always have found that really interesting to hear about what other types of therapy there are and what other things they're offering. And it's nice just to get like other perspectives from other professionals that are doing this. I feel like I've learned a lot about that, or I didn't know anything. So I've learned more than I knew before, just kind of opening up my world to all that.
Yeah. So we talked about how in certain social situations the anxiety is not there anymore and you just feel at ease. In other situations, there is still some anxiety, but it goes away quickly. Anticipatory anxiety is there sometimes, but it's so much shorter than it was. The beating up doesn't really happen so much anymore. You've made some friends. Are there any other benefits other than the ones that you've already mentioned that you can think of?
Yes. I mean, just learning to listen to my feelings and my body was something I didn't know how to do before. So I still struggle with that, honestly. When at the beginning of tapping, it is we're asked to think like rate how we're feeling about that thing, and then immediately after rate it again. And I still,
After tapping, you mean? Yeah. Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I still struggle with that because I feel like I'm not always in touch with how I'm feeling because I'm so programmed to just like keep going no matter how I'm feeling and not be paying attention to that at all. So that's made a really big difference for me. Probably the most important thing. And I feel stupid even saying that because, like, these are things that I teach my kids. And to think, man, like, kids should be learning how to regulate their emotions. And it starts with realizing where you're at and noticing how you're feeling and what's going on with you. And I didn't learn that until my middle age. So that's been a really big thing for me.
Self-awareness.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, would you recommend the club?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing. It's life-changing for me, and I know it is for other people in the cloud. And I think it's like it's the best thing that you could possibly do for yourself. And I think if anyone's worried about like the financial aspect of it, I would say it's like the best money ever spent. And it's a huge deal, I think, too, because I know some other therapy things that are way more expensive. And if you can find a way to afford that little bit, I mean, even like think of something you could take away to be able to do that, I think is going to be something you'd never regret for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing everything and being very open and honest. I said this at the beginning. We want to be completely transparent. That's what I tried to do as well. So we can paint an honest picture of what's possible. And I think you described it very well. You said that you didn't think you were very articulate. I think you're very articulate in what you're describing. So thank you very much. In closing, any final words or high five to people in the club or anything?
Yeah, I just feel like I'm just really grateful, and I hope that people that aren't in the club decide to join. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just don't give up hope. And there's stuff out there that can work, and it doesn't matter what age you're at because it'll be worth it. There's people in the club that are of all ages. There's I think high school to people in their 70s or maybe older. So it's all walks of life, and I think it's always worthwhile.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you very much for this interview. Much appreciated. And see you in the club.
Okay. Thank you so much. I hope it was helpful.
All right, hope you enjoyed that. That was such a beautiful, compassionate sharing of her story. Really, thank you for that, Deb. Thank you. Now, if you're watching this and you're interested in the Social Confidence Club, you're thinking of joining it, or you just want to learn more, go to bit.ly/social confidence club. That is bit.ly/social confidence club.